When you see a massive new building going up, a bridge, or a power plant, your mind probably jumps straight to the steel, the concrete, the sheer scale of it all, right? But what if I told you that long before a single shovel ever hits the dirt, a whole other structure has to be built first, one made of plans, schedules, and approvals? This is the world of construction management, the unseen blueprint that makes everything else possible.
So that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? How on earth do you manage thousands of parts and hundreds of people over months, even years, without the whole thing just falling into total chaos? Honestly, it's like planning a massive, complex mission. You absolutely need a detailed plan, a rock-solid timeline, and rules that everyone, and I mean everyone, follows. Without that core mission plan, chaos isn't just a risk, it's a guarantee.
So, let's trace this paper trail, shall we? We're going to see how an idea becomes a real physical thing. We'll start with how a project gets the official green light. Then we'll dive into the master schedule and the super detailed how-to guide. After that, we'll look at how every single piece gets approved, and finally, wrap up with the big rules for quality and safety.
Okay, first things first, getting that green light. Before anyone even thinks about pulling a wire or pouring a foundation, the project needs what you can basically call its birth certificate. It has to be officially brought into existence, and that all happens with a few really important documents.
You see, this whole process is incredibly structured, broken down into these manageable chapters. You can even see the Korean term for construction management right here, 시공 관리, which you'd say as 시공 관리. We are starting right at the beginning, Chapter 1, the paperwork that kicks the whole thing off.
And here it is, the star of the show, the Construction Start Report. Seriously, think of this as the official starting pistol for the entire project. Until this report is filled out, signed off, and submitted, nothing physical can happen on that site. It is the first, most critical piece of the whole puzzle.
And the process itself, it's pretty straightforward, but it's completely non-negotiable. So once the contract is signed, the contractor gets to work on this big start report. It then gets sent over to the client and the project supervisor for them to approve. And only when they give it the thumbs up can the actual construction work finally begin.
So what's actually in this thing? Well, it's pretty much the project's DNA. It officially says who the key managers are, it lays out the first draft of the project schedule, it gets into the high-level plans for safety and quality, it even includes pictures of the site before any work starts, just to have a baseline. And yeah, it has official oaths from the contractor. It's all about making sure everyone is accountable right from day one.
All right, let's move on to the master schedule. If that start report was the birth certificate, then the schedule is the project's entire life plan, mapped out. This is the master timeline that orchestrates the incredibly complex dance of construction. And how they build these schedules is really fascinating. They often use a technique called the critical path method, or CPM. What this does is it finds the one single chain of tasks that have to happen in order. It's kind of like a line of dominoes, you know? If any single domino on this critical path gets delayed, the whole project's finish date gets pushed back. It's that sensitive.
You see, a really good schedule is so much more than a list of dates. It's a logic map. It spells out the start and end for every major activity. It specifically names that all-important critical path, and it shows exactly how different jobs depend on each other. It even sets deadlines for submitting more plans down the road, making sure the paperwork always stays ahead of the physical work.
So if the schedule tells you when things are supposed to happen, the detailed construction plan tells you how. This is the project's instruction manual. It's the guide that gets into the nitty-gritty of the methods, the equipment, and the people you need for every single step. And just look at this chart. It shows you how much this plan covers. Of course, you've got the project overview and the org chart. But notice what gets the biggest slice of the pie? Safety and quality. And there's a really good reason for that. On-site accidents are the #1 cause of project delays and budget blowouts. So safety isn't just a moral thing, it's a financial necessity.
Now, a huge part of the how comes down to these things called shop drawings. As you see here, in Korean, it's 시공 상세도 or 시공 상세도. Now, these are not the same as the architect's blueprints. A shop drawing is made by the contractor, and it shows the super detailed real-world info on how a specific part, like an electrical panel, is actually going to be built and put in place.
And here's why that's so important. Shop drawings solve problems before they can happen. I mean, think about it. The space inside the walls of a modern building is incredibly crowded. These drawings make sure the electrical conduit doesn't try to run through the exact same spot as a water pipe. It keeps different teams' work from literally crashing into each other.
Okay, so we've covered the who, the when, and the how. Now let's talk about the what, the actual stuff. Every single physical piece, from a giant transformer down to the tiniest nut and bolt, has to pass a tough approval process before it's even allowed on the property.
This whole workflow is all about catching problems early. So, first, the contractor picks out the materials they want to use. Then, they send in a formal material approval request, which includes all the technical data, specs, sometimes even actual samples. The project supervisor then goes over all of it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure it meets every standard. Only then can that material be ordered and brought to the site. And check this out. This detail really shows you the level of planning involved. These requests have to be submitted at least 15 days before the stuff is actually needed. This buffer is literally built into the schedule to stop the approval process itself from causing a delay on the project. It's all about thinking ahead.
Okay, last but not least, let's look at the big ideas that govern everything on site. These are the fundamental rules for all the materials and the quality of the work itself, making sure the final product is both safe and built to stand the test of time.
And let me tell you, the rules for materials are incredibly strict. First off, everything has to be brand new and meet quality standards like the Korean standard or KS mark. Second, you can't use anything without the supervisor's explicit approval. Third, you've got to handle everything carefully. And fourth, if something doesn't pass inspection, it's gone. Immediately removed from the site. No ifs, ands, or buts.
But wait, how do you prove you followed the rules for something that's about to be buried in concrete forever? The answer? Photos. Construction photography is a mandatory part of quality control. It creates a permanent visual record proving that, yeah, the wiring inside that wall was done right, or that the rebar was laid out exactly to spec. It's the ultimate accountability tool.
When you really step back and look at it this way, you start to realize something. The cranes, the welding, the actual building part, that's just the final act of a very long play. The real success or failure of that project was decided months, maybe even years earlier, in all of that meticulous paperwork, in that unseen blueprint.
And that, right there, is the main takeaway. It's not just about building a thing, it's about building a foundation of information first. Successful execution is no accident. It is the direct result of obsessive, detailed, meticulous planning and documentation. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you're looking up at some towering skyscraper, are you just going to see the steel and the glass? Or are you also going to think about that invisible architecture? The unseen blueprint that is the true foundation of every single great structure.